I never thought I'd end up here, writing to a subreddit about this mess. Honestly, I didn't even think it was possible to feel this betrayed, this numb. My wife Emily and I had been together for 6 years. We were supposed to get married last weekend, surrounded by friends, family, the whole picture-perfect scene. Or so I thought. The week had been a whirlwind of last-minute planning, champagne toastings, and laughter. I remember the way her eyes sparkled when she helped me put on my suit that morning, her delicate fingers brushing my shoulder, whispering how everything was perfect. I was on cloud nine, but beneath that I'd noticed little things. She started avoiding my gaze on Wednesday, and she was unusually tense when I brought up the honeymoon plans. Still, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just nervous. The night before the wedding, something changed. I stayed up late, waiting for her to come back from her friend's house. When she finally strolled in around 2 a.m., her eyes were glassy, her cheeks flushed. I could smell alcohol on her breath. She mumbled something, kissed me briefly, then slipped into bed without another word. I was too exhausted to question it. She needed her rest, right? It wasn't until the next morning that I'd start to realize that everything I knew about her might have been a lie. The wedding day arrived, and I did my best to focus. Everyone was smiling, taking pictures, celebrating. But I couldn't shake this gnawing feeling in my gut. Something was off. During the reception, I caught her sneaking glances at my brother, Jason. That shouldn't have been a big deal. Brothers and sisters look at each other all the time, but the way she looked at him was different. It wasn't just fondness, it was something hotter, more intimate. I saw the way her hand lingered on his arm when she thought no one was watching. Then, about an hour before the reception ended, she vanished. Just disappeared. I looked everywhere, under the tables, outside, even in the bathrooms. No sign of her. I finally found her purse in the ladies' room, but her phone was gone. My stomach clenched tight. This wasn't just a runaway bride, it felt like she was running from something much worse. My mind raced. Where was she? Who was she with? I decided to check her social media, thinking maybe she'd left a message or a clue. Her accounts were wiped clean, no recent posts, no messages, nothing. That's when I saw it, a hidden chat with Jason. And the last message she sent him made my blood turn cold. Can't wait to see you tonight, miss you already. That was it. My wife, my bride, my partner of 6 years, had been sleeping with my brother during our wedding week. I never suspected a thing. I felt my chest tight and my fists clench. How could I have missed the signs? Was I so blind, so naive that I believed in vows and fairy tales? Or was I just not enough for her? The entire weekend turned into a blur after that. I didn't go after her. Instead, I sat there cold and empty, staring at the empty space where she'd stood. My mind kept replaying her face, her touch, the way she looked at Jason, like he was the only thing that mattered. I could feel my jaw tighten as I clenched my teeth. I thought I knew her. I didn't, not anymore. Now I sit here, trying to piece everything together, and honestly, I don't know what's worse, that she cheated or that she vanished without a trace. Every vow I ever made to her feels like a joke. Did I ever really know her? Or was she just pretending all along? I keep asking myself that, and every time I do, a deep, burning anger starts to boil up. I don't want to just forget or forgive. I want her to pay. Not with violence, never that, but with something that shows her she can't just walk away from me and my life like she never existed. I want to make her regret what she's done. That's why I started planning my revenge. I don't know what it will be yet, maybe exposing her, maybe something more subtle, but I know I'll make her wish she'd never crossed me. This isn't just about betrayal. It's about trust, about everything I believed in. And I refuse to let her walk away unscathed. If she's going to leave me, she's going to leave with a scar. A real one. That's the point now. That's the plan. But first, I need to figure out how deep this goes, and how I'm going to make her pay. After I found the chat on her social media, I couldn't even sit still. My head was pounding and my stomach felt like I'd swallowed a stone. Everything about her suddenly felt like a lie. I kept replaying her last messages, her glances at Jason, the way she disappeared without a word. I'd been blindsided, and now I was furious, more furious than I'd ever been in my life. I decided I needed to see her again, face her, get some answers. I wanted to hear her lie, her explanation, or maybe just watch her crack. But I also knew I couldn't just storm into her hotel room or where she'd gone. That'd be too obvious. I had to be smarter about it. So I started digging, gathering evidence, anything that could help me understand how deep her betrayal went. I wasn't just angry, I was calculating. That night, I went back to the house we'd shared. I wanted to see if there was anything left behind, something I could hold on to, some sign of her that would make her real. I looked through her things, trying to find a clue, a fragment of what she was thinking. That's when I noticed her purse still sitting on the bathroom counter. I slipped my hand inside, feeling around for something, anything. That's when I found a small, folded piece of paper tucked beneath her makeup bag. It was a note, just a few words, but they hit me like a punch to the gut. Meet me at the lakeside tonight. I need to tell you everything. No signature, no explanation, just that. I felt the coldness seep into my bones. She was planning to meet him again. She was still lying, still hiding something. Or maybe she was planning her escape, her last act of betrayal. I looked at the clock. It was already past midnight. I knew where she was headed. There's a small, isolated lake about 15 minutes from the city. I'd been there once or twice. Quiet, dark, perfect for sneaky meetings. I decided I'd go, but not to confront her directly. I needed to see what she was up to catch her in the act if she was still with him. I parked my car far enough away so she wouldn't see me, then slipped into the shadows. The night air was thick and cold, the kind that makes your skin crawl. I could hear the faint splashes of water and her footsteps as she approached the lakeshore. I stayed hidden behind a cluster of trees, watching. That's when she appeared, Emily, my wife, dressed in a simple black coat, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked nervous, like she was waiting for someone. That's when Jason stepped out of the shadows, just as I'd imagined. The way they looked at each other made my stomach turn. She reached out and touched his arm, whispering something I couldn't hear. I clenched my fists so tight my knuckles ached. My mind was racing. How long had this been going on? Was I just another fool believing in a fairy tale marriage? Then Jason pulled her closer and she didn't resist. My blood boiled. I wanted to burst out of the shadows, to scream at her, to make her feel the pain she'd caused me. But I held back. Instead, I watched them talk for a few more moments, their faces inches apart. Then she turned and walked away, leaving him there. She disappeared into the night just like that. I stayed a little longer, watching her retreat into the darkness, feeling the weight of betrayal crushing down on me. The scene seared into my mind, her figure moving away from me, from us, into another man's arms. I knew then I had to act, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. The next morning I sat at my kitchen table, coffee cooling untouched, trying to piece together my plan. I'd need something more than just evidence. I wanted to make her feel as small as she'd made me feel. I wanted her to see what she lost, what she threw away for that bastard Jason. I decided I'd start with her phone. It was the key. I'd get into her accounts, find everything she tried to hide. But I also knew I should tread carefully. Whatever I did, I needed to make it undeniable. No more guessing, no more doubts. I wanted to give her a taste of what betrayal really means, something she wouldn't be able to deny. I wasn't interested in petty revenge. I wanted her to realize she'd crossed a line she couldn't come back from. So I pulled out my laptop, started working on my plan. First step: get into her email account, find out who else she's been talking to, what other secrets she's hiding. Second, I'd get that evidence out in the open, make her understand I wasn't going to let her walk away without consequences. Third, I'd figure out how to turn her own secrets against her. I knew I was playing a dangerous game, but I also knew one thing: she'd regret ever messing with me. The pieces were falling into place and I was finally in control again. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. And I was going to see it through, no matter what. The more I thought about it, the clearer everything became. I stayed up most of the night, digging through her social media, emails, messages, anything I could find. I needed solid proof, something irrefutable that would make her realize she was caught. I wasn't just after revenge for the sake of it. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, to understand that I could destroy her life just as she'd tried to destroy mine. I found her email account pretty easily. I knew her password from years of living together, and she was careless about security. The inbox was a gold mine. There were messages from Jason, secret exchanges, plans to meet, even flirty comments that went beyond friendly. But what hammered me the most was a series of intimate emails, texts that made it clear she'd been cheating on me for months. All of it hidden behind code words and emojis so I'd never suspect. Now it was laid bare. I printed out everything I could find, carefully, methodically, making sure I had copies saved on a flash drive. I wanted to be ready for whatever came next, but I also knew I needed a backup plan. I couldn't just confront her and wait for her to run. I had to be prepared for her to deny everything, to spin some story about how I was paranoid or jealous. That's when I started thinking about the best way to make her understand that I wasn't playing around. I decided I'd use her own words against her. If I leaked those emails, just enough to catch her attention but not everything, I could force her hand. She'd have to confront the truth. And once she did, she'd realize I was serious. The plan was simple in theory. I'd send her a message, revealing I knew everything, telling her to meet me at the same lakeside spot. That would be the perfect place to confront her, quiet, secluded, vulnerable. I wanted her to see me, to understand that I was no longer the naive fool she'd been deceiving. She'd have to face her betrayal face to face. But I had to be careful. I couldn't just send the emails blindly. If she found out I was behind it, she'd disappear again, or worse, destroy evidence, cover her tracks. I needed her to believe I was out of the picture, that I didn't know about her affair. So I set up a burner email, created a fake account, and sent her a message. It was blunt but chilling. "Meet me tonight. We need to talk. Come alone." Her reply came within an hour. She responded with a shaky, "What's this about?" I knew I had her. She was scared, but she also thought she could manipulate her way out of this. That's when I decided I'd give her just enough rope to hang herself. I wanted her to come, to be vulnerable and exposed. After all, she thought she was clever, but she'd underestimated me. The afternoon dragged on, every minute feeling like a lifetime. My palms sweat, my stomach fluttered, part anticipation, part dread. When evening finally arrived, I drove back out to the lake, parked behind a thick grove of trees, and waited. I knew she'd come. She had to. Then I saw her silhouette approaching, clutching her purse close, her steps hesitant. I stayed hidden in the shadows, watching her. She looked around nervously, probably thinking I wasn't there. That's what I wanted. I wanted her to feel the fear, the uncertainty. I wanted her to realize the game was over. When she finally got close enough, I stepped out from behind the trees, cold and deliberate. She froze, eyes wide with shock and guilt. Her voice trembled. "Who are you?" I looked her right in the eye, feeling the weight of everything I'd uncovered. "You know exactly who I am," I said softly. "And I know everything you've been doing. The affair, the lies, all of it. You thought you could get away with it, didn't you?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her face was pale, trembling. I took a step closer, feeling the adrenaline spike. "You lied to me. You betrayed everything we had, and I'm not going to let you walk away from this without consequences." Her voice cracked. "Please, I was going to tell you. Save it." I cut her off. "You were planning to run just like that, but it's too late for that." She looked like she was about to break, tears welling up but trembling on the edge. I looked at her, feeling a strange mix of anger and emptiness. I'd never thought I'd see her like this, caught, exposed, vulnerable. It was almost satisfying, but it didn't erase the hurt. It just made it worse. I handed her the printed emails. She stared at them, eyes brimming with tears. "How long?" I asked, voice cold. "How long has this been going on?" She whispered, "Almost a year. We got carried away. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I took a deep breath, feeling the tightness in my chest. "That's enough. You've made your choice." I turned away, leaving her there, shattered. I didn't need to say anything more. The damage was done. As I walked back to my car, I realized one thing. I wasn't just broken, I was bleeding. But I'd be damned if I let her think she'd get away with it. I'd make sure she felt the loss, felt what she'd thrown away. Because in the end, no one betrays me and walks free. Not anymore. The drive back from the lakeside was slow and heavy. The night air was cold enough to bite through my coat, but I barely noticed. All I could think about was her face, staring at those emails, her tears, the way she'd tried to lie and deny. I felt a strange mixture of relief and rage. Relief because I finally had the truth, and rage because knowing what she'd done didn't make the ache in my chest any easier. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. I thought I knew her, loved her. Maybe I did, but she'd been hiding this for a long time. I imagined her lying in bed, trying to convince herself she was clever enough to pull it off while I was left in the dark. That realization, it hit me hard. The next morning, I knew I had to make a decision. What came next? I'd already gathered enough to destroy her if I wanted, enough to make her regret ever crossing me. But I needed to think beyond just revenge. I needed clarity. I had to ask myself, am I really going to let her walk away from this? Or do I cut her out entirely? I decided I'd sit her down face to face and lay everything on the table. No more hiding, no more secrets. I wanted her to own up to what she'd done, her lies, her betrayal. I wasn't interested in a lame apology. I wanted her to feel the full weight of her actions because that's what she deserved. I called her that morning trying to sound calm, but I could feel my voice trembling. "We need to talk," I said. "Can you come over?" When she arrived, her face was pale, eyes red-rimmed. She looked like she'd been crying all night. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "Look," I started, voice steady but cold, "I know what you did. I know about the affair. The emails, you thought I wouldn't find out, but I did." She looked down, tears streaking her cheeks. "I'm sorry, I really am. I don't know what I was thinking." "Sorry," I scoffed. "Sorry doesn't cut it anymore. You lied to me for months. You betrayed everything we had, and you think a stupid apology can fix that." "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. "It just happened. I got caught up and I didn't know how to stop it." "Bullshit," I shot back. "You wanted to cheat. You wanted to be with him, and now you're just going to walk away like nothing happened." Her shoulders shook and she looked at me with pleading eyes. "Please, give me another chance. I swear I'll make it right." I felt a bitter laugh bubble up. "Another chance? After everything? You want me to just forget about the year of lies? To pretend I didn't see what you did behind my back?" She sobbed harder now, clutching her stomach as if the weight of guilt was crushing her. "I love you, I really do. I was just stupid." That was the moment I knew I couldn't keep pretending. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Love isn't enough when someone's willing to throw it all away. I deserve better than to be your backup plan, so I've made my decision." She looked at me with desperation. "What are you going to do?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out the letter I'd written the night before. It was simple, direct, and cold. I handed it to her. "Read this," I said, "and then you can leave. Don't come back." She opened it slowly, eyes darting across the words. I could see her trembling, realizing I wasn't joking, that I had already made up my mind. When she finished, she looked at me with a mixture of shock and disbelief. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," I said. "You're done. I'm done. I want you out of my life, and don't try to contact me again." She looked devastated, her face crumpling. "Please, go," I cut her off sharply. "Just go." As she packed her things, I felt a strange sense of clarity. It was horrible, but I knew it was the only way to start healing. She'd betrayed me, and I wasn't going to stick around waiting for her to decide if she still wanted me. I was done. Later that day, I handed her the keys to the house. "You can keep everything," I said. "Just leave. I don't want to see you again." She hesitated, tears streaming down her face. "I never wanted to hurt you." "I don't care," I replied. "You did, and now it's over." As she drove away, I felt an odd mixture of relief and emptiness. The house suddenly felt too big, too quiet. I'd lost my wife, my future, maybe even part of myself. But I also knew I'd taken control back. I'd faced the betrayal head-on, and now I could start rebuilding from the ruins. The truth was, I'd never trusted her again, not after what I'd discovered. I'd always questioned whether I really knew her, whether I ever did. Now I had my answer, and honestly, it hurt like hell. But in a strange way, it felt like a weight lifting. I'd taken a stand. And that's what I want to tell anyone else in a similar situation. Sometimes, the only way to reclaim yourself is to face the worst, own it, and do what's necessary to protect your peace. Because no one deserves to be betrayed like that, and no one should stay in a relationship where honesty has been lost forever. After she drove off with her bags, I just stood there in the driveway, staring at the empty space where she'd been. My hands were still numb, my stomach twisted in knots, and I could feel the buzz of adrenaline slowly fading into an emptiness I wasn't sure how to handle. It was like the house had suddenly become a shell, silent, cold, and hollow. I had just ended everything, and yet a part of me still felt like I was waiting for her to call, to come back, to somehow undo what had been done. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew I shouldn't be surprised by that feeling. Betrayal does that. You start questioning everything, your memories, your instincts, even your own judgment. I kept thinking about the little signs I'd ignored, the moments I brushed aside. How could I have missed her sneaking around? Why didn't I see the red flags? But honestly, the real truth was I just didn't want to see them. I wanted to believe in us, in the vows we made. That made her betrayal sting even more. As I started walking back into the house, I felt a strange calm wash over me, like I'd just freed myself from a trap I didn't even realize I was caught in. I knew I'd be hurting for a long time, but I also knew this was the start of something new, a clean break, a chance to rebuild my life without the weight of her lies dragging me down. I sat down on the couch, exhausted, and stared at the empty walls. The silence was deafening. My mind kept circling back to Jason, her, their secret world. The thought of him still made my stomach churn. That bastard. He'd always been sneaky, the kind of guy who thought he could swoop in, steal what wasn't his, and get away with it. I'd never trusted him, and now I had proof. I'd uncovered that secret, and I knew I had to leverage it. I reached for my phone, but hesitated. There was a part of me that wanted to call someone, my best friend maybe, to tell him everything. But I also knew I needed to keep this close. For now, I'd keep the evidence, the emails, the photos. I'd use them later when I was ready. Right now, I just needed space, time to breathe. Then I remembered the letters I'd written. I pulled out the one I'd left on the kitchen table. It was simple, just a goodbye, a statement that this chapter was over, but reading it again made my chest tight. I wanted her gone for good, not just physically, but mentally. I didn't want her to have any control over me anymore. I wanted to move forward, even if it meant doing it alone. I took pen and paper and started writing my own notes, things I'd learned, what I'd felt, what I'd planned. I knew I'd have to be careful with how I handled this, making sure I protected myself legally, emotionally. I couldn't just burn everything and walk away. I had to be smart. That night, I did something I'd been avoiding, calling a lawyer. I wanted to be prepared. I needed to know my rights, what I could do if she tried to come back, or if she tried to take anything from the house. It was the first step in reclaiming my life, and I wasn't going to let her shatter what was left. In the end, I realized I wasn't just angry anymore. I was determined. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about reclaiming myself, about showing her that I could stand tall after being knocked down, that I was still here, still fighting, still capable of starting over. And I knew deep down that no matter how much it hurt now, I'd come out of this stronger. Because the truth is, you never really know someone until they betray you like this. And once you do, there's no going back. But there's always a way forward if you have the courage to take it. The days that followed were a blur of paperwork, quiet reflection, and a strange sense of liberation I hadn't expected to feel. I spent hours on the phone with lawyers, making sure everything was in order, transfer of assets, finalizing the divorce, protecting what was left of my property. Each small step felt like barricading myself behind walls I was finally constructing, defending what little I had left of my dignity. I realized that, in a strange way, I was grateful for this nightmare. Not because of what she did, fuck that, but because it forced me to confront truths I'd ignored for too long. It showed me how fragile trust is, how easily it can shatter. And it made me see the importance of standing up for myself, of never letting anyone take advantage of my good nature again. One thing I knew for sure, I wasn't going to be that guy who gets walked over. I had to rebuild, inside and out. So I started focusing on myself, getting back into shape, reconnecting with friends I'd lost touch with, and figuring out what I really wanted from life now that I'd lost the illusion I'd been clinging to. Not everything was easy, and I still felt the ache of betrayal every day, but I was slowly learning to live with it. The final act was simple but impactful. I took a set of keys she'd left behind and walked to the door. I paused, took a deep breath, and looked around the house that once meant everything to me. Then I placed her keys on the dining table, along with a letter I had written earlier that day. It was straightforward, no drama, just a final note to close that chapter. "I'm done," I wrote. "You chose your path, I'm choosing mine. This house, these memories, consider them part of my past now. You have no place here anymore. Take what you want, but leave the pain behind. I'm moving on. I folded the letter, took her keys, and left them on the table. Then I walked out, shutting the door behind me. I felt a strange mix of relief, exhaustion, and something else I couldn't quite name, a sense that I had finally reclaimed control over my life. Driving away from that house for the last time, I looked at the horizon, the sky tinged with the orange glow of sunset. It hit me then. This was the end, but also the beginning. My life was mine again, free from her lies, from the betrayal. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but I'd learned to face the darkness. The truth is, I don't know if I'll ever fully trust again or if I want to. But I do know one thing: I won't let someone else's betrayal define me. I've got my scars, sure, but I've also got my strength, and that's what I'll carry forward. So to anyone out there who's been betrayed, who feels shattered, know this: it hurts like hell, but you can survive it. You can rebuild. And sometimes the only way to truly move on is to take back your power, face the truth, and walk away. Because in the end, no one should ever have the authority to break you so completely, unless you let them. And I refuse to give her that control anymore.